Welcome back to the Midday Bell. I'm Rebecca Kurzweil. In today's episode, we're exploring innovations in cardiovascular medicine and biotech drug development. My guest is David Elsley, President and CEO of Cardiol Therapeutics, who brings over 3 decades of experience in building and leading companies focused on heart disease. We'll discuss the science behind Cardiol's approach, the global team driving its research, and how clinical programs are shaping the conversation in cardiology. If you're interested in biotech clinical trials or new perspectives on heart disease treatment, this episode is for you. Good afternoon, David. It's so great to have you today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Nice to be here, Rebecca. Thanks for your interest in cardio.
Absolutely, yeah. First off, with any type of investment, I think the most important thing is really the people behind it and whether or not those people have the skill set and the experience to actually make a company successful, which is no simple task, as I'm sure you understand. So I'm very curious if you could just, over the past 30 years, you've built you've been building cardiovascular drug companies from founding and leading Vasigen, and now leading Cardiol. So investors always want to know, can you execute? What about your background and experience in the team specifically that you've built can make investors confident that Cardiol will be successful and be able to deliver a phase 3 and broader pipeline of opportunities?
Yeah, sure. As you mentioned, I've had the great pleasure of working in heart disease, life-threatening heart conditions for now over 3 decades. So that's really been my career. My entire life's work has been developing medicines for life-threatening conditions. And been honored to work with world-leading cardiologists from really around the world, throughout US, Canada, throughout Europe, Latin America. We've got a global team of renowned experts. We've got phenomenal stewardship on our board. You may know, Rebecca, that Dr. Tim Garnett was the most recent addition to our board. He was formerly Chief Medical Officer of Lilly, which is the largest pharmaceutical company in the world. So he served as their senior medical specialist from 2008 to 2021. So it's just phenomenal that he agreed to join our board. And then we've got an awesome team at Cardiol that has 2-3 decades and experience developing medicines for life-threatening disease. It's been a great privilege, and it's a great honor to work with all these people.
Amazing. So why Cardiol? What makes CardiolRx a more compelling option than other existing biologics, or other emerging therapies in terms of safety, accessibility, and cost?
It's really, as you say, what's different about it than biologics. I mean, biologics they're injectable. Patients, if they have our therapy is oral. We have an extraordinary safety profile. Biologics can be immune suppressing, and what that means is they can increase risk for infection and other medical challenges, and they're very expensive. There is a biological being applied in our lead target indication, and that drug is over $250,000 per patient per year, which is, I believe, one of the most, if not the most expensive drug in cardiovascular medicine. So relative to that drug's profile, we're more accessible because we'll be more a cost-effective therapy. We have a superior safety profile. We're twice daily oral, which is the way most folks wish to take their medicines. And I think most importantly, is we're addressing a fundamental cause of heart disease, which is inflammation. So the great hope for our drug is that it'll be disease modifying. So patients can take the drug, resolve their disease, wean off the drug, and go back to living a perfectly normal life. And that's important to these patients because heart disease does impair quality of life. It can destroy quality of life, and it can take lives of all age groups unnecessarily. And that's where Cardiol's trying to play an important role.
Now, you obviously wouldn't create a company if there wasn't a sizable market to address. I'm curious, how large is the current addressable market for, recurrent pericarditis, acute myocarditis, and ultimately heart failure? And where do you see Cardiol's therapies fitting in that landscape?
So for our lead program, which is in recurrent pericarditis, that market currently in the US, just for the biologics or the drugs, which have all the limitations that I recently or just mentioned, They're generating 600 million in revenue per annum and growing rapidly, which really underscores the need for a new therapeutic entrant. So you have this drug with all its challenges from a therapeutic profile point of view. But notwithstanding that, they're generating 600 million, with many on Wall Street forecasting it to reach a billion. So that really shows the opportunity for the lead market. And we're in a pivotal phase 3 trial being led by the largest preeminent cardiovascular research centers in the world, anchored out of Mass General, which is part of Harvard, Cleveland Clinic, Mayo Clinic. That's running our lead program. So that's one market. That's the near-term market opportunity for our company. But we also have a very ambitious program in broader areas of heart failure medicine. And heart failure is really one of the greatest medical challenges of the modern era. It's an epidemic. It's driven by issues such as diabetes, obesity, high blood pressure, and that's creating this increasing phenomena called heart failure, which at any one time can affect 26 million people in the developed world and take tens of thousands of lives and cause billions in hospital admission. I think over 35 billion is spent on this condition each year in the United States alone. So that's our next stage focus here. And that's why we're so excited about the data that we recently announced from the Archer trial, which was another global trial that had a significant impact on cardiac inflammation, which underlies fibrosis and the disease heart failure.
And so you just mentioned that you've completed a global trial. What in the next 12 to 18 months can investors expect in terms of catalysts? Like what can we watch for as in trial enrollments, like data readouts, publications, or any partnership announcements?
So I think we can expect all of those
Yeah.
at that time horizon. So the lead program called Maverick, which is a pivotal phase 3 trial in this miserable, debilitating condition called recurrent pericarditis, that is progressing. Preeminent centers in the United States. We're soon to add major centers from Europe and additional global trial centers to that study. That is tracking towards what we believe will be the company's first new drug application. We've just read out top-line data from another global study called Archer in a very devastating form of heart inflammation, which is called acute myocarditis. That is and remains the leading cause of sudden cardiac death in people under the age of 35, for which there is no standard of care. So this condition in a 25-year-old male can cause heart failure, which typically doesn't develop until advanced age. So in this condition, patients in severe cases, they can develop heart failure, they can require cardiac transplant or heart transplant. And in hospital mortality is 4 to 6%. So it's a dangerous condition. It has no standard of care. And we've recently reported top-line data, which we believe is the first drug, showing the first drug ever to have a biological effect in this condition. And more importantly, that provides a gateway into a much larger opportunity, which is heart failure, which is now the key focus of the company, in addition to our phase 3 effort.
And in a previous interview, I saw that you mentioned an orphan drug designation. What exactly does that mean, and what regulatory advantages does that confer for investors? And what are the key FDA, EMA decision points we should be tracking?
So the orphan designation, or the Orphan Drug Designation program, was established by regulators around the world, including the United States, to really motivate and incentivize life sciences, biotech, and pharmaceutical companies to develop conditions for life-threatening diseases or very debilitating conditions that are more rare than, say, mass market conditions. So in the case of an orphan designation, it would be awarded to a disease that affects less than 200,000 patients at any one time in the United States. So we were awarded that designation by the US FDA. That provides the company a potential 7 to 9 year market exclusivity, accelerates our development path, and it waives fairly significant fees associated with the regulatory approval development cycle. So we were thrilled when that designation was awarded to our lead drug for recurrent pericarditis. We now believe there's similar opportunity with acute myocarditis based on the data, and we look forward to the full data presentation later this year from the Archer trial. And then, so the parent company really has these lead orphans, which, notwithstanding they're rare, they do cost billions to serve, and they're underserved because of their situation of being a less common condition.
Hmm. One thing I'm curious about, are you already sharing data with large pharmaceutical companies, and what does an attractive partnership or licensing deal look like, and how close are you to securing one?
So we are in active discussions on the business development front, corporate development front, with multiple constituents in the life sciences community, which include big pharma. So we have this interesting paradox right now. We have the life sciences sector more undervalued than any other time in history and more advanced in its development cycle, and yet we have the pharmaceutical industry better capitalized than really any other time, with trillions to deploy into M&A. And we have this next generation concept called CRD38, which is a potentially once monthly treatment for one of the leading causes of death and disability in the Western world, which is heart failure.
Yeah.
That is a condition that is international. It really, it's probably one of the most impactful conditions next to, say, diabetes or Alzheimer's on civilization. And we are now accelerating the development of that asset that we absolutely expect to partner with a very well-financed pharmaceutical industry.
And you mentioned that there's trillions of dollars to deploy into these pharmaceuticals. Where is that money coming from? I'm just very curious. And
Well, it's coming from cash flow being generated by existing products from big pharma. Either
right.
there's multiple blockbusters. If you think about heart failure, for example, you can think about a company called Novartis, which is an international pharmaceutical giant. They make a drug called Entresto. Entresto is an $8 billion and growing drug, and that's one of many drugs in the heart failure space. And that just underscores the size and magnitude of this opportunity. But even with great drugs available in the market, we still have a greater than 50% 5-year mortality rate with heart failure. And the segment of heart failure, which is half of it, that we plan to address, or we're looking to offer a new form of therapy for, is called diastolic heart failure with preserved ejection fraction. And that condition has an in-hospital mortality of upwards of 75%. So that really underscores the need for new therapeutic entrants. We aim to be one of those that addresses a causative factor, which is inflammation, that really threads together the underlying cause of all of these conditions. They all have one common link. Inflammation exacerbates them.
So there's obviously a massive need for this. It's incredibly common. And I can imagine all of us know someone that's obviously died of heart failure at some point in our lives. So it's a
Uh,
massive market you'll be addressing.
yeah, no question. I think when you think about cancer, that strikes this emotion, but
Yeah.
heart disease takes far more lives, and it definitely has affected all of us to some degree in our lives, a parent, a loved one. And in the case of myocarditis, it can be a child or a brother. So it's really it's urgent that these therapies be sped along in their development, and that's what energizes Cardiol. That's what energizes our team and our global collaborators at the world leading cardiac institutes.
Now you've guided that you have cash, the company has cash that could last until Q3 2026. What milestones will that funding cover, and what would trigger a need to raise earlier than expected?
We don't foresee any requirement to raise earlier than expected. In fact, the primary area of focus for capital inflows to the company is from partnering initiatives with the pharmaceutical industry. So we're very comfortable with our current cash position. That'll fund a number of impactful corporate development milestones, including the completion of the pivotal phase 3 Maverick trial, which will, we believe, support a new drug application and entry into a market that by that time could be $1 billion market opportunity. We
Yeah.
look forward to additional full data set reveal and review and publication of the important Archer trial data, where we've shown the ability to insulate heart cells against the insidious attack of inflammation, which can lead them to die or become fibrotic. And then we have the acceleration to look forward to of the heart failure asset, because now we have the key link between our experimental data and now human data, or data from a human heart, showing the ability of our potentially once monthly drug to interrupt the inflammatory disease that causes ultimately the death of cardiac tissue and the onset of one of the leading causes of death and disability in the world today.
So you made it very clear too that this is an incredibly sizable market, and Cardio's market cap actually sits around just under 100 million. While past cardiac biotech companies have been acquired for billions. What do you think the market is missing with Cardiol, and what could you re-rate, or what could you predict would re-rate the stock?
Well, with respect to what it should be valued at, as a public company CEO, I really need to leave that to the analysts that cover the company. And as you know, Rebecca, there are targets by these analysts anywhere from $6 to upwards of $10. I believe there was a reinitiation just recently at $10. So that's a multiple of the current valuation, which I think is entirely justifiable. So we have been in this perplexing bear market in life sciences, notwithstanding the numerous life-saving medicines being developed. But as we know, the market can get it wrong over periods of time, and then it gets it right. And I think a classic example, you mentioned previous multi-billion-dollar takeouts. If you look at a company called Myocarditis back in 2017, it traded at a very similar market value to that of Cardiol today, and it traded there for an entire year. And then they partnered with pharma. They went to 2 billion, they went to 6 billion, and then another pharma bought the entire organization for 13 billion, all within 3.5 years. So things can change very quickly. And Myocarditis was developing, their lead drug was for a rare cardiac disease. Cardiol's lead drug is for a rare, debilitating, very costly to treat cardiac disease, where the incumbent medicine is over $250,000 per year. So I think the opportunity for Cardiol is extraordinary. The best is yet to come, and we're working with a team that is second to none, just a phenomenal group of people. And we are looking forward to making great strides in the balance of this year and into 2026.
Yeah, you just touched too on the management team that you've created, which we talked about, a little bit in the beginning, and then possible exit scenarios. So like, what do you envision is the most likely path to value realization for shareholders? And like how, what people in your team have experienced getting to that point and will be, a tremendous asset to potentially a takeout. I imagine that might be your exit strategy or not, but I'd love to hear from you.
So if you look at members of our board, members of our management team, our chief medical officer was prior to joining Cardiol 4 years ago, headed the largest development program, I believe, ever for Amgen, which is the first and largest biotechnology company in the world, with a market cap exceeding 150 billion to this day. So that's one example of part of our team, and that team also incorporates phenomenal talents on the regulatory, clinical operations, drug development side. And then we have a board that has been party to and part of multiple transformational medicines. One of our directors was one of the founding part of the pharmacology team that developed a similar medicine for our medicine in a pediatric setting. That company was acquired for 7 billion in 2020 or 2021. So that's one example. And then we have phenomenal cardiology talents. We have drug developers, founders of pharmaceutical companies, and veterans from the pharmaceutical industry. So they've all shared in multiple different blockbuster successes. And we're thrilled that they've lent their expertise to help move our drug expeditiously forward to ultimately serve the patients that are at risk and having their quality of life severely impacted by these poorly served medical conditions.
And so, yeah, do you, what kind of is the ultimate exit for a company like this to be acquired by a major pharmaceutical company?
That's certainly one potential scenario, and we've referenced a few of those multi-billion dollar exits in our discussion here today. But there's also the collaborative scenario, the co-partner, co-develop scenario, where the pharmaceutical partner supports ultimately the late stage development and the ultimate commercialization of the drug. And the drug discovery hub company, which is Cardiol, the shareholders are rewarded by sharing in milestone fees, capital infusions, acquisition of potential equity by that partner, and then ultimately long-term profit sharing or royalty streams. So there's many different ways shareholders can benefit from these collaborations with a very well-financed pharmaceutical industry.
I love that. So yeah, definitely from this, from speaking to you, it really sounds like you've got a fantastically experienced team, a great product, and a storyline that could really change at any moment. Like that previous company you referenced just completely changed in 3 years. So it's a story that investors should be closely paying attention to. It could be very, the story could obviously just develop so quickly over time, and I can't wait for that moment to happen for this company.
And it will. I mean, 2025 is setting up to be an extraordinarily exciting year. We look forward to presenting the full data set from Archer later this year at a scientific forum and ultimately publishing it with the cardiovascular community. I think when the folks in the public see the impact of our drug on that life-threatening condition and how that translates into a new drug for heart failure, that is going to be really the key inflection point for this organization, at which point I believe a significant revaluation is going to occur, and the analysts that have been forecasting it will be right.
Yeah, I hope so. And so just to wrap up, do you have any final comments for an investor that would just be discovering Cardiol right now during this interview? Yeah, do you have any final comments that maybe we didn't cover that you'd love to just finish on?
I just refer anyone that wants to know, investors, members of the public that wish to know more about Cardiol. CardiolRx.com is a phenomenal resource of all the information about Cardiol. Contact us, speak to our investor relations group. Happy to share additional information about the great work we're doing in life-threatening heart disease. And we look forward to keeping existing shareholders and new shareholders fully informed of our progress, because there's a deadly form of disease called heart failure out there, and we are looking forward to altering the therapeutic landscape and bringing new, accessible, affordable medicines to those patients for which quality of life is so important and so impaired by these conditions.
Amazing. So now, thank you so much, David, for your time. I don't want to take up any more of it. I really appreciate you sharing your story with me, and anyone that's going to be watching this interview. Thank you so
Thank you, Rebecca, and thanks for your interest in our work.
much. Amazing. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David from Cardiol Therapeutics, for joining me and sharing his perspective on advancing cardiovascular research. If you found this conversation insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode. What were your key takeaways from today's discussion? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. Thanks again. I'm Rebecca Kurzweil, and this is Midday Bell. See you again.